We got a big time update on Jalen Ramsey trade talks and trade rumors today. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. We have a new pair of teams that could be interested in Ramsey. We have a timeline and kind of the reason why Ramsey and Miami are ultimately parting ways. Before we get into the meats and potatoes of today's show, hit that sub button and help us get to 70K subs. We are 60 away. 60! Hit that sub button for daily content, and boy, it would be quite the milestone to get to 70K on today's episode. All right, the trade update comes in from NFL Network's Cameron Wolfe, who is very tapped in with the Dolphins, always in South Florida. He said on NFL Network this morning that nothing is imminent. There have been conversations throughout draft weekend and May. There is interest, but it has been relatively quiet. I was told to keep an eye on the June 1st date. The Dolphins are aware of teams that Ramsey would be interested in. Now, when you hear him say the June 1st date, and if you actually listen to the clip, he said July 1st. That was a mistake. He meant to say June 1st, and he later clarified that. But as we've talked about on the show significantly here, the difference between the cap hits, if you trade them, just say now, compared to in the month of June, are just unbelievably significant. The Dolphins' dead cap would raise by $12 million, raising the $16 million cap hit for Jalen Ramsey it's right now to about $28 million this season, and then more dead cap gets triggered in next season as well. If you wait to trade him after June 1st, his cap number comes all the way down to about $7 million, I believe. It's $9 million that you free up in cap space, which would be very helpful to help sign in Asante Samuel Jr. or Rasul Douglas. So, yes, this is a big update, and there's more that Wolfe dropped and shared, but trade is happening. It just is going to happen in June, maybe even July. He also said that he won't be there at OTAs, which begin next week. All right, another thing that is very interesting here is that Wolfe mentioned 3 teams when speaking on Ramsey. He obviously mentioned the Los Angeles Rams, but he also labeled the Atlanta Falcons and Carolina Panthers as possible Jalen Ramsey suitors and teams that Ramsey would be interested in be trading to. Now, the Falcons one makes sense. The Raheem Morris connection there. Morris was obviously on the Rams staff when Ramsey was in Los Angeles. And then the Carolina Panthers apparently has a really good relationship with Elijah Evero, one of their defensive coaches. So that is a reason why Atlanta and Carolina are being thrown out there. But I will say I'm a little interested and shocked by Atlanta and Carolina, specifically the Panthers. I don't know how real that interest could be from Jalen Ramsey's side. I would assume as he reaches his age 30 season and the tail end of his career, he'd want to compete for titles. And although I do like Bryce Young, I like what they're building over there in Carolina, they are still probably, 2-4 seasons away from competing at the highest level in the NFC. So why would Ramsey want to go there? I could see him being interested in Atlanta due to Morris. They could use another secondary member. He'd get paired up with A.J. Terrell, which is fascinating. The Raheem Morris connection. And I think if Michael Penix works out, the Falcons are relatively close to winning in the NFC. But I'm fascinated by those two teams being linked to Jalen Ramsey. More coming up here in a second, but I want to get your predictions down in the comments section. Where does Jalen Ramsey ultimately get traded? I've been saying it's going to be the Los Angeles Rams for about a month now. I'm going to stick to that prediction, but like I've mentioned throughout the show, a couple new teams coming to the forefront. Anthony Weaver, by the way, has been asked about why he thinks Ramsey and Miami are ultimately splitting up. They did not mention that Ramsey requested a trade or anything to the highest degree. It's not play concerns. It's not contract concerns. He labeled it as relationships are hard in terms of just heads butting. And we know that the reason why, just by other reports, Weaver saying this, that Mike McDaniel and Ramsey had a falling out. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's because Jalen Ramsey was one of those players that was constantly late to meetings that Mike McDaniel referenced at the end of the season press conference. But it seems like there just was butting heads between Mike McDaniel and Ramsey. So when you look at what Miami has to deal with now on the cornerback market, it's not the best, man. Ramsey off this roster, it's now heavily predicated on whatever free agent you sign, Cam Smith, Storm Duck, and Kader Kohu. And yes, I want to make it clear, the Dolphins are going to sign at least one free agent corner, whether it's Rasul Douglas, whether it's Asante Samuel Jr., fingers crossed, maybe it's Stephon Gilmore. Doubt that that's going to be the case. But the point is this. There has been a lot of discussion and propaganda for Cam Smith, and I don't know if I'm here for it. Cameron Wolfe, in that same little hit he did for NFL Network, mentioned that the Dolphins have turned the page on Ramsey, talk about him in the past tense, and now are focused on developing Cam Smith in his third year. We've heard Chris Greer talk about how Cam Smith can't be babied anymore. He's going to have to be a contributor this season. Like, am I missing something here? Like, Cam Smith was absolutely horrific last season in limited opportunities. He only showed up for 103 cover snaps and was absolutely terrible. He had a completion percentage that was about 80+%, gave up a touchdown in very limited snaps, had a QB rating on targeted of 122.4. He just got absolutely abused. And I just continue to point back to that game against the Arizona Cardinals. A gotta-have-it game. Tua coming back from IR. You just lost to the Colts the week prior. You get a win at home against Arizona. You start to build something. And if the Dolphins ultimately won that game, they probably make the playoffs with a 9-8 record potentially, or 10-7, because they don't kind of throw away the final game of the year against the Jets. It's whatever you want to say. Like, Cam Smith got torched by Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. I wish I had the Dolphins' optimism for Cam Smith, but I just think he stinks. He didn't play it as a rookie because he was on the doghouse of Vic Fangio, and then last year he dealt with an injury that cost him the first 4 games of the season. Then when he played, he stunk, and then got benched for UDFA Storm Duck. Like, I don't know why there is a lot of optimism from the Dolphins on Cam Smith having a third-year breakout. I would hope to God I am wrong, and I get proven wrong about Cam Smith. I just don't see it. I think the guy's not very good. He gets injured a lot, too. And if they're relying on Smith to be the CB2 this year, we're in for a potential long season. All right, coming up here, I want to take a different approach to a Jalen Ramsey trade. We've talked a lot about what draft capital could come back to the 305. What if the Dolphins actually traded and got a player back in a Ramsey deal? We'll talk about 3 trade ideas from those 3 teams we mentioned earlier. But I got to show some love to Prize Picks, the sponsor on today's show, the daily fantasy sports platform I play every single day. And although football season is far away, you can get season-long entries in now, but you could also get some last-minute action with the basketball playoffs. Doesn't matter if it's points, rebounds, assists. Take your pick of more or less for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And they put their members first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, and boy, do they hit quite a bit, folks, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. I have an entry in for the basketball Eastern Conference Series. More than Miles Turner, 15.5 points per game. More than Tyrese Halliburton, 8.6 assists per game. And less than Karl Anthony Towns, 11.6 rebounds per game. After one game, not the worst. Turner scored 14, Halliburton had 11 assists, and Cat had 12 rebounds, so I'm certainly in play with my entry here. Join me and millions of others on PrizePicks today. Download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Links in the description and comments of today's video. PrizePicks, run your game. Let's segue into Jalen Ramsey trade ideas that feature players coming back to the Miami Dolphins. We'll have a Rams trade idea, a Falcons trade idea, as well as a Panthers trade idea. We'll start with the Los Angeles Rams. I think this one is very intriguing because, yes, they need a corner pretty desperately in Los Angeles. I think they would be willing to move off of one of their corners that is lower on the depth chart. Now, the Dolphins wouldn't get as good as a draft pick in return, but how about Kobe Durant and a 6th-round pick in this year's draft for the services of Jalen Ramsey? Durant intrigues me a little bit. He's like CB4 on the depth chart behind some other guys, but last season in 490 snaps as the CB3 or 4, he was relatively solid, man. QB rating when targeted of 72.3, only allowed a pair of touchdowns, was on the field a lot, completion percentage of 56.9%. A reason why they could look to deal him. He is on the last year of his rookie deal, making $3.3 million this season. If they have no intention of extending Kobe Durant, maybe they just trade a mid-day 3 pick as well as him, get off of him, and improve their cornerback room with Jalen Ramsey. It's certainly a fascinating deal. Durant, 5'11", you get him into this building who played more snaps on the outside than the nickel. If you made that trade, you have now Durant. Let's just say you have Cam Smith. You sign one of those corners we mentioned earlier, whether it's Douglas, Samuel, or Gilmore, and then Storm Duck, Jason Marshall Jr., Ethan Bonner as depth pieces with Cater Cohen in the slot. It's an intriguing idea. If the Dolphins made a deal with the Rams, I would try to see if the Los Angeles Rams were willing to part ways with Kobe Durant. Let's move over to the Falcons now. How about we get a safety in DeMarco Hellams plus a 5th-round pick? So Hellams, a former 7th-round selection, 224th pick in the 2023 draft out of Alabama. I am high on Hellams. I've had an eye on him for a while. He played one season, 2023, appeared in 15 games, had about 40 tackles, 25 solo. Not really anything in terms of in pass coverage. He is a physical tackling safety, which I really like. He did not play last year due to an injury that he suffered in the preseason, then never got activated. The Falcons drafted 2 safeties in this class, high-profile names, Billy Bowman from Oklahoma, Xavier Watts from Notre Dame. I think Hellams is on the outside of that roster cut, and he flashed for the Falcons in the 2023 preseason, got some snaps in the regular season. I would be intrigued with adding Hellams to this group. Now, you might say the room in Miami is too crowded with Dante Trader Jr. joining the fold alongside Elijah Campbell, Patrick Morris, and then also having the 2 free agents, Ashton Davis and Iafatu Melifonwu. But you get a 6th safety here in Hellams. Guess what, guys? And this is something that I believe in football. I believe in life. Competition breeds success. You get 6 guys fighting for 4 or 5 roster spots. Play will be elevated, and you will, without a doubt, have better safeties on your depth chart if you added another guy to compete for a spot. Let me ask you this, because I am intrigued. Would you want a player back for Jalen Ramsey? Or do you just want draft capital? Because obviously if you are getting a player in return, the draft compensation you are getting back is not going to be as high. If you just did a draft pick, it's probably a conditional 4th-round pick. But as you have seen with these trade ideas and these players, it changes to a 5th, a 6th-round pick you get back. Let me know, do you prefer just draft capital or would you want a player in return as well? Y for yes, N for no. Last trade idea on today's show. We're going to look at the Carolina Panthers. This one is probably the most unrealistic, if I'm going to be honest, because A'Shawn Robinson is actually pretty solid. The Dolphins get a 6th-round pick plus a D lineman who looks to be a kind of rotational depth piece this year for Carolina, 2nd year of a 3-year deal. Carolina then gets Jalen Ramsey. Robinson, who was solid in 2023 for the Giants, then parlayed that solid year to a 3-year contract with the Carolina Panthers, where he had 80 tackles and 5.5 sacks on that interior defensive line last season. Little shocking. Obviously, they have Derek Brown. They drafted some other D linemen. They signed a couple in free agency. So Robinson could be like their 4th or 5th D lineman. And if that's the case, the Dolphins may be looking to add more veteran presences alongside Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant, Jordan Phillips, Benito Jones, Zeke Biggers, and maybe they grab A'Shawn Robinson. If he's on the block and you were negotiating with Carolina, I would be definitely intrigued with the idea of adding Robinson in return for Ramsey. But let me know your thoughts down below. And also make sure you are subscribed to the channel because when a Jalen Ramsey trade inevitably occurs, we will have you covered. I am going on vacation on June 1st and June 2nd, so I'm hoping that there is no trade then because I'd like to go live on the channel with you guys when Ramsey gets traded. If it doesn't happen on June 1st or June 2nd, we will be going live. If it does the first 2 days of June, we're in trouble, but we'll still have a video, so make sure you're subscribed.